Hi, I'm Mindy, and we're so excited to be back here today with another virtual tour. We are at Gills Onions, and Gills Onions, as you can kind of see today, they're closed. So we came yesterday and we pre-recorded a tour, and we have a good friend of ours, Megan Jacobson, on who's going to give us a brief introduction and then answer any questions that we have during the tour afterwards. But Gills Onions was founded in 1983, and it's the nation's largest family-owned onion grower, and they have one of the largest fresh cut onion processing plants in the world. And we're so excited to share their facility with you today. And I'm going to hand it over to Megan for an introduction.
Thank you, Mindy. Hello, everyone. So again, in Mindy's introduction, we are Gills Onions, the nation's largest fresh cut onion processor. We are based in Oxnard, California, which is a beautiful Ventura County. And so we grow in 3 different regions in California. We start in Imperial Valley, Brawley area in the springtime, then move to the Central Valley within Kern County and Fresno County for our summer onions. And then right now we're harvesting in King City, California, which will have our onions. Onions are like potatoes, they store great. So we also have a storage season. We are the only fresh cut onion processor in the country that grows our own supply. We are very proud to be California based, California grown. And I'm really excited for you guys to view the tour today that Mindy and the team filmed yesterday with our owner, Steve Gill. I'm actually based here in Fresno, California. I have a long history with Ag in the Classroom. So again, I'm so excited to be here with you guys today, answer your questions. I've been attending Ag in the Classroom conferences since I was 6 months old. So I'm very excited to be here today and share all the good news of onions with you.
Good morning, I'm Steve Gill, and welcome to Gills Onions. We're going to take a little tour here today and show you what we do here at Gills Onions. And we're going to start off with washing our hands and getting geared up for walking into a food plant. It's part of our food safety program that everybody has to go through here. And we'll go ahead and start that process. Okay, we're back and we've got our hairnets, gloves, and earplugs to go in the plant. As you can see behind me, there's people coming in and they're on a break, but we're going to go in and start looking at some of the operations that we perform here at Gills Onions. At this operation right here, we're doing sliced onions. One of our large customers in Canada, A&W. These are onion rings that we'll send these to Canada. They separate them and take them apart and make cooked onion rings out of them. So these are the machines that do all the cutting. After cutting, all the boxes go through a metal detector to check for any metal contamination. So we do different size slices. We slice 1/2 inch, 1/4, 3/8. So we do a lot of different sizes, as you can see going across over here. These are slices for a hamburger company and national company. Another slice product we make. One thing that we do is we have the size, the lot number, the use by date,
We have an 18-day shelf life on all our products, longest of anybody. This 8-inch slice. At around 34 degrees, so it's always cool in here. This is our shipping and receiving cooler. We bring our raw product in, and we also have all our finished products that we ship out. We assemble all the orders in here, and the trucks will be coming in this afternoon and picking up, and we only process to order only. We don't carry any inventory, so when a company gives us an order, we like to get it, 3 or 4 days in advance. We make it that day and ship it. It's got an 18-day shelf life, so everything has to move fast across the country. So this area is not too busy right now, but in the afternoon it's really busy. We'll get some onions.
Can you talk about the difference between the clean side and the dirty side? Your plant?
Oh, well, the clean side is where it's ready to eat.
Okay.
Where the peelers are is kind of the dirty side. So this is our cold storage for the onions. We cool them prior to peeling. This is our inventory in here. Yellow onion.
We saw a lot of different things here this morning, and I just want to start with the process of the onions coming down the conveyor belt to the peeling machines in the first room that we were in. And those are our new style peelers that give us a higher yield and a better peeling than the old machines that we have that are 40-year-old technology. And they go through the machine, the gals orientate them so that the top and tail is orientated to get cut off, and then the machine picks it up, spins it around, blows the peel off, and then it goes down to a conveyor belt that goes out to an inspection table. After the inspection table, you saw the onions go through a water shower, and that water shower is to sanitize the onions with chlorine solution to wash, to kill any microbes that might be on the onions. And then it goes to dicer, and we saw the dicer chopping the onions in 1/4-inch dice. That 1/4-inch dice, after it comes out of the dicer, goes into a flume, and in that flume there's chlorine also to wash the onions, sanitize them, and then they come out the other side through a dewatering table after they come out of the flume, and then after the flume it goes up to a spin dryer. The spin dryer is very similar, well, it actually does the same job as your washing machine at home when it's spin dries your clothes to dry them out to put them in the dryer. So what we do is we spin dry them and then elevate them up to a scale and then down to a bagger, which you saw the 5-pound bags. And then the 5-pound bags are put into 20-pound boxes is what they were being put into there. And then put on a pallet and then put into the cooler and get ready for shipment. Now, all orders here are done by order only. We have no inventory, so all products are made the day of shipment so that they're fresh. We have an 18-day shelf life, and we ship nationwide across the United States and Canada.
More onions. Well, we do basically a yellow onion and a red onion, but there's like 35 different varieties of yellows that we do, but out of the 35, there's thousands to pick from. So we do a lot of research for the ones that work the best here.
What's onion?
I'm going to explain that. So what we have behind me right here is our onion waste that comes out of the plant. We lose approximately 30-35% of the onion in the peeling process. And what do we do with all that waste when we have a couple 100,000 pounds a day coming out? Well, we take it and we press it and we extract the onion juice out of it. And we reduce our solid waste by about 75%. The 25% that's going into the trailers is sold as cattle feed. And the juice is extracted with these presses and choppers that we have, and we make methane gas out of it. And I'm going to walk over and go through the process of how we describe that process over here with all this. So this is a big juice extraction process behind me here. Terrible stuff. So this process is very interesting from the standpoint that taking our onion waste and we used to convert it to electricity, but with hydrogen fuel cells. So what happens is the onion juice goes into this tank here. We mix it with water and heat it to 98 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we inject it into this big black anaerobic digester. The anaerobic digester is full of bacteria, and they consume all the nutrients in the onion juice, and they clean the water up so that we can discharge it into the city sewer system. Okay, so we originally, when we developed this project about 12 years ago, we had hydrogen fuel cells where we took the methane, biomethane, which is the same as natural gas, and separated the carbon and hydrogen, and the hydrogen fuel cell would convert it into electricity. But the company that did the hydrogen fuel cells didn't service them anymore, so we're in the process of putting a internal combustion engine in to burn the natural gas. In the process, we stopped the release of about 25,000 tons of CO2 back into the atmosphere by letting it rot naturally in the field or wasting it that way. So we found a way to solve two problems. Get rid of our waste, which we don't depend on anybody to help us with, and then environmentally, it's did a great job in getting rid of CO2 and clean water, and just a lot of benefits from it. So behind me here is the reactor, and it's got about 30,000 gallons of bacteria in it. The water the onion juice mixed with water upflows through the bed, and the bacteria consumes all the sugars in the onion juice. So it's 145,000 gallon. It's an interesting story. I work with UC Davis in the Ag Engineering Department, and it took a while to figure out how we were going to digest the onion skins, and so we ended up, long story short, making juice out of it. And they had a 1 liter vessel up there, and they were injecting with bacteria, injecting the onion juice, and they said it would work. So I went from a 1 liter vessel to a 145,000 gallon reactor, you know, not knowing if it was going to work or not, but I needed to solve a problem, and I really did solve it with that. Well, that concluded our tour of the Gills Onions facility, and we're here at the end of the project at the digester. But I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak to you today and show you the operation. We went through the facility, and it was quite noisy, and I couldn't really describe everything, but Megan Jacobson, my VP of Marketing and Sales, is going to be available to talk to you guys after this video. And we farm in several areas of California. To give you a little more background from the standpoint that we grow in 3 regions of California: the desert, Imperial Valley, Central Valley of California, and the Salinas Valley. We're in production here 12 months out of the year. We harvest onions from April through November, and then we have onions in storage for the rest of the season, and we haul them in here from those different regions. So we have national distribution of our onions, and you saw different labels in there that didn't have Gills Onions on it, but we pack private label for other broadline distributors across the country. We have an 18-day shelf life. We are a very sustainable company, dealing with our own waste, as you can see from the project behind us here. And we're just wanted to conclude that I'm glad that I was part of this, part of your tour this week.
That was so great. Thank you, Megan and Steve, for that wonderful tour. And so just, I think the question at the top of everyone's list is, Megan, how do you keep from crying with onions? I mean, I will say that how do you keep from crying in an onion processing plant, from our experience, is almost impossible. But at home, when we're just cutting onions, how do we keep from crying?
You know, our slogan for Gills Onions is, if you're still chopping onions, it's a crying shame. When people say, Megan, what do you do for a living? I tell people I'm in the business of making people cry. But in reality, I am in the business of making sure that people don't cry. So Gills Onions, we are a fresh cut onion processing facility, which means we do not sell the bulk onions you see in the grocery store. We are 70% food service, 29% industrial, 1% retail. So think of onions in the back end of a restaurant. So we do get this question a lot. How do you stop from crying when you go into the plant? I will tell you, Steve Gill's been at this business for close to 40 years, and he still cries every time he goes through our plant. But here's a helpful hint. If you wear contacts, they protect your eyes a little bit. I only tear up for the first 3 minutes or so. I'm a contact user. And then I always tell people, wear your safety glasses, it helps. But usually within 15 minutes of being in the plant, it does subside. But every single person, elected officials, teachers, customers, we put everyone into tears. So we are truly in the business of making people cry.
Yes. Megan, can you talk a little bit about your food safety practices here at Gills Onions?
Absolutely. We are SQF3 certified. Our SQF audit that happened in February, we scored 100%, which is nearly unheard of. We are the top and the best of the best in food safety. As you saw, as you geared up in the plant, there's, the whole garments going in. The only thing that has changed during COVID is adding masks in addition to what we were already doing. But in terms of SQF, when you were looking at the facility, our walls are built in a way that you could take a hose in our facility right now and wash everything down. And that's not something that processing facilities have had for, since the beginning. So if you put a hose in our facility right now, every nook and cranny, every bolt to the machineries, everything can be sanitized and washed down. And that is what is important for food safety, is being able to get a hold of those small microbes that can cause problems. So again, we are proud to be the best in food safety, SQF3 certified, which is the best that you can be. And we do take food safety extremely seriously.
Perfect. Yeah, it was pretty incredible to walk through. So we have a comment about, or a question, I just saw it. Can you talk about the reactor and what you guys do with the methane gas and the byproducts from onions?
Absolutely.
I know Steve covered that a little bit at the end, but
He definitely did. It's our AIRS, our Advanced Energy Recovery System. And so we digest that waste, and it creates methane gas. The methane gas used to be held into our fuel cells, and that gave us the ability to actually power up to 460 homes annually here in California. The fuel cell manufacturers no longer maintain those fuel cells. And so we are currently transitioning our system over to be able to utilize that natural gas in other ways. But again, we used to capture that through fuel cells, power our facility, which was up to 460 homes. And now we are having to transition that to capture that in another way, because our fuel cell manufacturer no longer has that technology.
great. And how many products do you make here at Gills Onions?
Absolutely. So we do whole peeled, diced, sliced, slivered, and also pickled onions as well. So we are 100% onions. We do a celery and onion blend for, especially we're busy during the holidays, but we have that year round. But we stick to the whole peel, sliced, diced, slivered lines.
Perfect. And Steve talked in the video about the 18-day shelf life. Can you talk about what the contributing factor is and how you guys were able to say that, or determine that 18 days is the shelf life?
Absolutely. It's our number one selling point for food service and industrial. Shelf life and quality matter. Imagine when you're in the grocery store, we've all ran into problems where sometimes products go bad. So fortunately for Gills Onions, our closest competitors are 10 to 12 days. And the reason why we are able to achieve 18 days is because we control the seed to package. Again, I mentioned in my introduction, we are the only fresh cut onion processor in the country that grows our own supply. When we think of agriculture and growing products in California, our process starts from the time, even actually before the seed goes into the ground, the way we treat our soil. And this actually, and I want to emphasize this because it relates back to you as teachers and your children in classrooms, when maybe if you have a school garden or you're encouraging kids to have gardens at home, it all starts with the way that we treat our soil. So Gills Onions, we focus on the microbes in the soil, making sure we feed the plant what it needs. When you grow healthy, strong onions, it gives us healthy, strong onions to process, which allows us to achieve our 18-day shelf life.
Perfect. Thank you so much. How has the pandemic affected your production and sales, here at Gills Onions?
Absolutely. That's a great question that I'm very transparent on, because I think it's important for the industry to discuss this. Everything in food service crashed on March 16th. And I remember that day because I drove down to Oxnard when every single truck for food service was canceled in the United States because restaurants were shut down overnight. 70% of our business is food service, 29% industrial. And when I say industrial, those are products that go into tomato sauce, or let's say salsa that you enjoy. Onions are a key component to adding flavor. So when everything in food service shut down overnight, basically, if you put the math together, we lost 70% of our business overnight. Within a couple months, we were able to build that back up as restaurants started opening. But I'm sure as all of us saw in California, things shut back down in June. So you had everything drop off. We came back a little bit, we dropped off again, and then now we are definitely seeing an increase. I'm seeing heavy percentages every single week, but we are dependent upon restaurants and food service opening back up. So also as teachers, to make the connection as well, When I say food service, again, that is restaurants, that could be cafeterias at universities, even your school cafeterias at your school, that is considered food service. So when our schools shut down, and we are still doing some lunches at schools, but now they're in a to-go bag, because kids are going remote. So that all affected the food service business. 50 cents of every dollar before COVID, 50 cents of every dollar spent on food was spent in food service. So if that all closed down on March 16th, we had to build everything back up. So COVID has impacted us. The ag industry has responded. And what makes onions different? So leafy greens, your lettuces are only in the ground for about 35 days. Onions, we are making planting decisions for 18 to 24 months from now. We are starting to plant onions that will last us through April 2022. So onions are different than your leafy greens. Yes, we are a vegetable, but we have to basically roll the dice because we're making planting decisions 18 months from now, not knowing what the market is going to look like.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot to take in, but I want to give you guys to make the connection with your kids and as teachers, but it's a lot to take in, but there's a lot that goes into agriculture and the decisions we have to make before we know we have a market to sell it in. It's the nature of agriculture, and also especially the nature of fresh produce, because the moment you harvest the product, the clock starts ticking for shelf life for fresh produce.
Yeah, we have two. I have two follow-up questions after that. One, where can I know you talked a lot about food service and restaurants and school cafeterias. Can we purchase Gills onions in any grocery stores? And then two, do you guys have your own onion fields? You talked a little bit about planting 18 months ahead of time, but where are the onions actually grown at before they're processed?
Definitely. So that 1% of retail, guys, we can process up to 1 million pounds a day at Gills Onion. So even if retail is only 1% of our business, it is still a very substantial chunk of that. So in California, if you know Smart and Final, look for our label in the fresh cut produce section. We even sell a 3-pound bag there. Stater Brothers, there's several other retailers. Although Vaughn's, it's private label, so they use our whole field or our diced and pre-package it. So if you buy fresh cut diced at a Vaughn's or a Safeway or an Albertsons, you are buying Gills Onions product, but it doesn't have our label on it. And Smart and Final and Stater Brothers, you will see our label on it here in California.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look for that.
Our planting region. Sorry, I wanted to answer the second part of your question. We have 100% of our onions are grown here in California. We start in Brawley in April for Imperial County, Brawley. It's near the border in California. Then the way agriculture works, you guys, is we move up the state. Usually the hottest part of the state is Southern California. So the first onions are coming out of the ground in April, May. Then we switch to Bakersfield, California, Kern County in the San Joaquin Valley. Again, we're moving up. After Bakersfield, we go to Fresno because you keep moving north. And then after Huron area, which is the west side of Fresno County, we move to Salinas, which is the cooler temperature area. So that's where our onions are coming off last. So again, you move up the state in California, similar with veg crops, same with onions. So we have Imperial, Fresno, Kern County, and Salinas Valley where we harvest our onions and plant. And we have growing partners. So onions do great with rotational crops. So if you don't know, with vegetable crops, we tend to rotate our crops around. So the field that we are planting and harvesting onions in this year, we'll maybe have carrots or leafy greens or another vegetable crop next year. So we do rotate crops here in California.
And do you guys grow other crops besides onions?
Yes, so Gills Onions only does onion, but our parent company goes by the name of Rio Farms. Steve and David Gill run our farming operation on that side, and we grow 20 to 30,000 acres here in California and Yuma, Arizona.
Perfect. And then what I started to ask was, how many employees do you guys employ at Gills Onions? And a follow-up to that is, when we're talking to students about different career options, what kind of careers do you hire for?
Absolutely. So we employ several hundred people here at Gills Onions. However, if you include our parent company, because they actually run our farming division, we employ thousands of people between our farming division and Gills Onions. But Gills Onions just by themselves just employ a few hundred people here in Ventura County, and we're very proud to be a large employer here in Ventura. In terms of career options, I just love in agriculture. Even if you're not born and raised in ag, there's always an opportunity to come into our industry. So it's not just there's the farming side and so many opportunities within farming, ranch management, down to soil health and fertilizer being a PCA. Then there's the opportunity of working in our facility. You have maintenance, production, accounting, quality insurance, and food safety. In the past 10 years in California ag, especially fresh produce, that is a very fast growing segment of our industry. And I like to encourage people to look at food safety. Any of our CSU universities, UC Davis as well as our city colleges have food safety, quality assurance jobs. So I would strongly encourage students to look into quality assurance programs. And then you have sales and marketing. I majored in public relations, ag communications, and then I was able to also go over to the sales side, so the marketing, ag business side as well. So it's a very broad spectrum of talent that we need at Gills Onions to help service what we need to do what we do in onions.
Perfect. And I think you kind of talked about this, but we have a question in the chat about who owns the land that you guys farm on. And you own, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys own some of it and then you also contract with farmers?
We do, yes, because of the nature of rotating crops in California. Steve and David Gill are very large farms in California. So what we do is a lot of our onions and our veg crop is grown on our land, but we also work with growing partners. And when we do work with growing partners, we are planting the seeds ourselves. They're using our fertilizer program, our water program, how we plant. The whole program, I call it the Gill Way prescription. We kind of have our own prescription on how we grow onions, but we do use partners because onions rotate well with other veg crops. There may be a year that a field needs a break, so we will partner with someone to grow onions on that field that year. As we work with partners to help rotate crops.
Yeah. So Steve wanted to make sure that I asked you about your company's motto yesterday.
So I actually just said it when we started back up for the questions. Our motto is, if you're still chopping onions, it's a crying shame. So I know most of the time as consumers, when we go into the grocery store, we think of just buying one onion, but think in the back end of a restaurant, how many stacks of onions they use a day. And can you imagine your full-time job is all you do is chop onions all day long at the back end of a restaurant. So we take the crying out of it. We do the crying for you, and you receive 100% usable product. So there are no tears when you cook with Gills Onions.
Awesome. We love that motto. So I'm just scrolling through the chat, and I think some of these questions you might have answered, but it takes, did you say 18 months for onions to grow from seed to harvest?
Yeah, so actually our growing process is about 120, 130 days. So what we plant in October will be harvested at or around mid-April, May. But we start making planting decisions 18 to 24 months in advance because you have to make sure the land is ready, the seed is purchased, you start prepping the land with fertilizer. So the actual growing process is about that 120-day mark, but our planting decisions are being made much more.
Perfect. And do you have any information on your water usage and maintenance?
Yeah, so we've been able to, we do use drip irrigation or irrigation tape with onions the way that they are grown in California. And so we are very big into that drip irrigation and making sure that we conserve water. And we, through our program that we established 5 to 10 years ago, we have reduced enough water, that is enough water for 2,900 homes here in California. So agriculture, as we are all aware, uses a lot of water. But that's positive because that water grows our food that we get to enjoy. But with Gills and being able to convert over to drip tape, drip irrigation, we've been able to continue to conserve a lot of water. And it's actually not just the amount of water we use or how much we're using drip tape, it's how we plant our onion beds and the way we have advanced the way that we grow onions. We are able to conserve more land as well as conserve more water with better growing practices to be able to grow more on less land.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit? We had another question about air recycling in the plant.
Air recycling.
I think that when we were in there yesterday, Steve was saying that you recycle the air like
Yeah.
3 times per minute within
Yes.
the plant.
As you can imagine with onions, chopping one onion in your house, you get the fumes of onions, right? Well, we have, thousands and thousands of pounds that go through our plant, every single hour. And so we do have an air recycler within the plant that it's constantly rotating that air. That way, then the smell of onions, as you can imagine, the smell that comes off those onions, we circulate that air to keep everything circulated and keep our employees healthy.
Perfect. Yeah, I can imagine after being in there how important that was. What's the best way to store onions at home?
So onions, I would say you keep them in, a cooler area and a darker area. I just buy enough onions. Well, I get Gills onions when I'm down in Oxnard, so I can't complain. I rarely chop onions, but when I do have onions at home, I display them in my vegetable area. But I only keep onions for as long as I need them. But onions, guys, are like potatoes. If you store them well, they will last you months. Here in California, we finish up harvesting in October, November. Those onions will last us through April and May. How do we do that? We store them in cold storages. So when you're at home, how we store them at Gills is we store them in a cool, dark space. So that's what I would recommend with you, a cool, dark space with a lot of airflow, because onions do like a natural environment. So keep that airflow going. Imagine a sack of onions. That sack has holes in it, so it does allow the onion to breathe.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's all useful information for all of us at home.
Definitely.
I think we have 2 more questions. Onions went through the numerous bleach washes. What is the percentage, and does it dissipate? Is there any bleach left in the product?
No, there is no bleach left in the product. The chlorine solution that we use is the main product that all fresh cut processors use. We have a chlorine monitoring system that is ran by our QA food safety monitoring program. We have an entire team dedicated to monitoring levels of that chlorine wash in our plant. It never reaches a threshold. So basically it is as if you're, washing with a solution at home. You have those vegetable solutions that you can use to wash your produce. It's very similar to what we have in our facility. It is all within healthy ranges, and it is washed again. So, again, we have an entire team dedicated to that. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head of how much chlorine is in the wash, but it is extremely low levels that is monitored by FDA as well. So it is a monitored program, monitored solution that all fresh cut onion facilities utilize.
Great. And then I know Steve kind of talked a little bit about this, and we have some in front of us, but he said you grow 35 different varieties of yellow onions. But how many varieties of onions are there? And does the variety change the way that they're grown or processed?
Yeah, so there are thousands of different onion varieties, and the onion varieties we use work well in California, but these onion varieties may not work well in Idaho, Texas, Washington, other growing regions. So the seeds are really centered upon what works well for for us, so in terms of seed, I don't know if Steve mentioned during his interview, or if Mindy outside, I know this was not mentioned during the video, but it actually takes the genome sequence of an onion is 10 times that of a human. So it actually takes more than 10 years for a seed to get to production. So we don't get to start a new onion seed variety next month that was maybe created this past year. It will take 10 years for that to get to market. So developing onions and crossbreeding and being able to utilize that takes a very long time to get to market.
Perfect. And so what variety of onion would make us the best onion rings?
So you will actually never know what variety you are eating. There are very few onions that actually have the market of branding. Some of you may know it's called Vidalia onion. There's a couple new brands coming out, but onions really, when you buy a yellow onion in the grocery store, you really don't know what variety you're buying, because we don't really mark those varieties in onions. But in terms of Gills onions and our yellow onions that we use for onion rings, It actually has very little to do with the seed and a lot to do with the way that we farm them. We reduce nitrogen by 50% when we grow. We choose onion seeds that are of dry variety. So we grow a dry onion, reduce nitrogen by 50%. That nitrogen creates the water in the cells that make for a watery onion. And you don't want water or high sugars in onion rings, because when you fry them, they will burn. So with our growing program, it has more to do with our fertilizer and the way that we grow them, and actually less about the actual yellow seed that we choose.
Sounds great. I'm going to try some when I get home.
I
I did want to say that I think I made a lot of your coworkers jealous yesterday, because I had my mom make me a onion mask, and
already heard about it, Mindy.
you already heard about
that, and now I want to ask for one for myself.
Yes, they were very, they loved it a lot. So I have to give all the kudos to my mom who made it, but it was a fun conversation in the office yesterday. We have one last question, I think. What is the sweetest onion?
Good question, and I love this question. So thank you, Terry Ann, for asking that question. A lot of times we always get customers that will call us and say, hey, do you whole peel and process Vidalia onions? Vidalia is actually one of the very few name brands in the grocery store that people know for onions. But here's a fun fact. All onions are sweet in the springtime, freshly harvested. The spiciness of the onion typically comes as the onion is stored. Actually, if you go to Gills Onion's Instagram page, hopefully a couple of you, if you want to see this video, up in the top where it shows stories, it actually has me eating an onion at our sorting facility. And I literally just took a bite out of an onion. They really are sweet, freshly harvested. So all onions are sweet in the springtime when freshly harvested. And it doesn't really matter the variety. When they come fresh out of the field, they are absolutely delicious to eat.
Perfect. So we'll have to make sure to try those onions in the springtime. Megan, thank you so much. I don't see any more questions, but we very much appreciate your time and helping us put this together, and Steve's time with our tour yesterday. You guys were super accommodating, and we were able to learn so much and share it with all of our teachers who are participating in our conference. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Gills Onions appreciate having the opportunity to teach you guys a little bit about what we do.
Yes, it was definitely enlightening, and I know so much more about onions than I did just a day ago. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And
Megan, this is Judy. Thank you very, very much. This was so great. You know, we had to make a change in our schedule, and these folks at Gills Onion turned on a dime to make sure that this happened for us. And when Megan said she's attended our conference since she was 6 months old, her mother is the longest board member that was on our Ag of the Classroom board of directors, and just recently resigned from the board, but she was a staple, and that brought Megan along with her. In fact, I remember Megan singing the national anthem at one of our conferences, right?
That is right. I've sang national anthem for several Farm Bureau events, and actually, fun fact, if I can just add in, because I was talking to my mom as I prepared for this conference, and my mom was on, I believe, the board, Judy, for 26 years with Ag in the Classroom. Guys, when I grew up, we had a Fresno County Ag in the Classroom program too. Every summer, 2 weeks of the year was spent at the Farm Bureau office. And I think it was about 1991, 1992, we actually used to have a farmer adopts a class. My family was the first family to adopt an LA classroom. And I was talking to my mom about it this morning. I'm like, I remember it was right after the LA riots, but I was only 5 or 6 years old. But one of my first memories as a child, and honestly, I was only 5 or 6 years old. One of my first memories was walking to a classroom in Southern California with my grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, and that class later came to our operation in Fresno. So it was 1991 or 1992, which I can't believe how many years ago that was. But I hold a lot of fond memories with Ag in the Classroom, and I've been around it since literally the day I was born. So it is a privilege to talk to all of you today, because it's something my family and I hold near and dear to our heart.
You certainly do. You've got a lot of deep roots in agriculture. Yes, I remember you going into LA with your grandparents. That was pretty cool. Very cool. Well, thanks so much. And thank you to the Gills, because this was super informational. We've got to get One of the resources I'm going to talk about in just a minute are our fact sheets on agriculture, and we don't have one on onions.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I know, and I felt like
The gardening one, but let's create one for onions, because teachers, there is so many fun things. I mean, a lot of people, celebrity chef told me about a month ago, he's like, making every great recipe starts with onions, garlic, and olive oil in a pan. And what
Yeah.
opportunity for kids to know how to flavor their food. Even in the poorest of countries, people use onions because onions flavor, and it offers a lot of nutritional benefits. So I would love to, we'll work with you on that.
we'll definitely work. As I was listening to your presentation and to Steve's, I just felt like here's a fact sheet right here of all kinds of interesting information. So very happy. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.